Welcome back to the Deep Dive.
Yeah.
Today we're going to unpack something pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
The connection between race-based trauma and financial literacy.
Okay.
I know
Yeah.
it might not seem like those two things really go together,
Right.
but trust me, the relationship is real,
Absolutely.
and it's crucial to understand.
What's so compelling about this topic is that it goes way beyond just your personal finance tips.
Right.
It's really about a historical legacy
Yeah.
that still shapes financial realities.
For so many people.
Yeah, for so many people.
Okay, so let's set the stage a little bit.
Yeah.
It's no secret that talking about money can feel taboo,
Yeah.
even though it touches every single part of our lives.
Right.
And right now,
Oh, yeah.
with the economy being what it is,
Absolutely.
it feels like financial anxiety is at an all-time high.
Absolutely. Inflation, crazy housing costs debt.
Yeah,
It's a lot to deal with.
exactly. It's a lot. It's easy to get caught up in the numbers and just feel overwhelmed. But what we're diving into today is this idea that financial health isn't just about
Right.
spreadsheets and budgets.
Yeah.
It's deeply intertwined with our psychology and emotions,
Yes.
especially for people of color.
That's such a vital point.
Yeah.
And for many people, that emotional relationship with money is rooted in experiences
Yeah.
that go way beyond their own personal choices.
Right.
It's about understanding how history has shaped our financial realities.
This is where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
We're talking about events
I know.
from centuries ago
Yeah.
that are still impacting financial well-being today.
Right.
You know, it's like the financial world has this long memory.
It really does. Think about it this way. The enslavement of Africans in America created an economic system built on forced labor, and the ramifications of that system
Wow.
really reverberate through generations.
And it's not like emancipation wiped the slate clean.
Unfortunately not.
Did it?
No systemic barriers were deliberately put in place to prevent Black Americans from achieving economic and social mobility, Jim Crow laws, literacy tests designed to keep people from voting.
Right.
These weren't just social injustices, they were tools of economic violence.
Okay.
Designed to maintain the existing power structure.
Economic violence is a strong term.
Yeah.
What do we mean by that?
It's a way to describe acts that deliberately limit or deny a person's access to financial and economic opportunities because of their race. It could be anything from being paid unfairly to being denied loans or access to quality education.
Got it.
These acts inflict trauma,
Yeah.
leaving wounds that can last for generations.
So we're talking about educational disparities,
Yes.
housing discrimination, like redlining, where banks literally drew red lines on maps
Literally.
to mark neighborhoods they considered too risky to invest in, which were predominantly Black neighborhoods.
Exactly. And what's shocking is that redlining wasn't ancient history.
Right.
Just a few years ago, the National Association of Realtors issued a formal apology for its role in perpetuating housing discrimination and segregation.
It's mind-boggling to think that something as fundamental as where you can live was, and it in many ways still is,
I know.
dictated by race.
Absolutely.
And then there's the devastating story of the Freedmen's Bank.
Absolutely. That's a prime example of economic violence and the trauma that it inflicts.
Yeah.
After the Civil War, the Freedmen's Bank was established to help formerly enslaved people gain financial stability.
Right.
Tens of thousands of depositors saw it as this beacon of hope.
Of course.
But then, due to mismanagement and corruption, the bank collapsed.
Oh, no.
Wiping out people's savings, can you imagine the profound sense of betrayal
Oh, yeah.
those families must have felt?
That kind of betrayal has got to leave a mark. I imagine it would make anyone hesitant to trust financial institutions.
Absolutely.
And that hesitation could easily be passed down through generations.
Exactly. That historical mistrust
Yeah.
can have a ripple effect on financial decisions for generations to come.
Wow.
So we've talked about economic violence. But how does all of this connect to trauma, especially race-based trauma?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
When we talk about race-based trauma, we're talking about the psychological and emotional injury
Yes.
caused by repeated experiences of racism and discrimination.
Yeah.
And as we've seen, economic violence plays a huge role in triggering this kind of trauma.
Think of it this way. Trauma is a response to a deeply disturbing or distressing event that overwhelms a person's ability to cope.
Yeah.
But race-based trauma is different from something like PTSD because in many cases,
Okay.
the exposure to those triggers is ongoing.
So it's not just a one-time event.
It's not a one-time event.
It's a constant barrage
Right.
of microaggressions, systemic barriers, and experiences of discrimination
Exactly.
wear a person down over time.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And those experiences trigger a whole range of emotional responses.
Yeah.
Fear, anxiety, anger, sadness, hypervigilance.
Wow.
These reactions are completely understandable,
Yeah.
even adaptive in the face of ongoing trauma. It's a survival mechanism, not a sign of weakness.
So for someone who's experienced generations of economic violence,
Yeah,
it's understandable why they might be hesitant to trust banks
absolutely.
or struggle with traditional financial advice
Yeah,
that doesn't acknowledge the systemic factors at play.
absolutely. That's why understanding the mental and health impacts of race-based trauma is crucial
Okay.
when we talk about financial literacy.
Let's delve into those impacts a little bit.
Yeah,
When we think about trauma, we often jump to PTSD,
right.
but the consequences are much broader than that.
Absolutely. We see higher rates of depression, anxiety, substance abuse,
Mm-hmm.
even relationship problems. These can all be linked back to the stress and strain of race-based trauma and financial instability.
And it's not just mental health. It impacts physical health, too.
It absolutely does.
Oh, isn't it?
There was this fascinating study that looked at Google searches
Okay.
for racially discriminatory terms
Wow.
and found that areas with high rates of those searches also had higher rates of chronic health problems among Black residents.
So it's a vicious cycle.
It is.
The stress of racism and financial insecurity negatively impacts health, which can then lead to more financial strain, which then impacts mental health.
That's right.
It's a lot to unpack.
It is, but here's the good news.
Okay.
We can use financial literacy as a tool to break this cycle
Okay.
and promote social justice.
Okay. So we're finally getting to the heart of the matter.
Yes.
How can we reimagine financial literacy to be a force for positive change?
First, we need to broaden our understanding of what financial literacy actually means.
Okay.
It's not just about budgeting and saving. It's about building the confidence, knowledge, and skills to navigate the financial world
Right.
in a way that empowers individuals and communities.
And that empowerment has to include awareness of those systemic factors that we've been talking about.
Absolutely. We have to acknowledge that traditional financial literacy programs that solely focus on individual responsibility
Yeah.
without recognizing the impact of historical and ongoing discrimination can actually do more harm than good.
Wow.
They can lead to feelings of blame and shame.
For circumstances that are largely out of someone's control.
So it's about recognizing that financial literacy is not just a personal responsibility,
Right.
but also a social justice issue.
Precisely. That recognition should inform how we design and implement financial literacy programs.
Okay.
For example, we need to be mindful of the language we use. Instead of talking about good versus bad financial choices,
Right.
we can talk about strategies for navigating a complex financial system that wasn't designed to benefit everyone equally.
It's about empowering people to make informed decisions
Exactly.
within the context of their own unique circumstances and experiences.
Exactly. And that empowerment can start with something as simple as exploring your own financial story,
Oh, okay.
taking some time to reflect on your earliest memories.
Okay.
And experiences with money can be incredibly revealing.
What messages did you receive about money growing up?
Yeah,
How did those messages shape your beliefs and behaviors around finances?
that's right.
These are questions we could all benefit from asking ourselves. It's about becoming aware of the emotional baggage
Yeah.
we might be carrying around money,
Oh,
so we can start to unpack it
yeah.
and move forward in a healthier way.
That's such a powerful concept. So once you've started to unpack that baggage,
Yeah.
what's the next step?
Well, one practical step is to take a look at your financial resume.
Okay.
This means pulling a copy of your free credit report, understanding your debt-to-income ratio, and getting a clear picture of your current financial situation.
So it's about knowing where you stand.
Yes.
So you can start to create a plan for where you want to go.
Exactly.
And that leads us perfectly into the next part of our deep dive.
Yes. In the next part, we'll discuss concrete steps and resources that can empower you to take control of your finances, build a more secure future, and advocate for systemic change.
So we've established that understanding your own financial story and baggage is a key first step,
Right.
but it can feel overwhelming.
Sure.
Like, where do you even begin to unpack all of that?
That's where the idea of reimagining financial literacy comes in. It's about acknowledging those systemic barriers we discussed,
Right.
and then actively working to dismantle them.
Okay, but how do we actually do that?
Yeah.
It feels like such a massive undertaking.
It is massive, but It starts with shifting our perspective.
No.
Instead of solely focusing on individual actions,
Right.
we need to look at the institutions and policies that perpetuate these inequalities.
So instead of just telling people to budget better,
Yeah.
we need to address the fact that predatory lending practices might be trapping them in a cycle of debt.
Exactly. We need to be asking, why are certain communities consistently targeted for these practices?
Yeah.
How do we change the system so everyone has equal access to fair and affordable financial products?
I'm starting to see how this reframing of financial literacy is actually a form of social justice.
Right.
It's about empowering people to understand and challenge the forces that shape their financial realities.
That's the heart of it, and it means pushing for change at multiple levels. We can hold financial institutions accountable for their role in perpetuating inequality, advocate for policies that promote economic justice, and create financial literacy programs that are culturally relevant and address the specific needs of marginalized communities.
So it's about a multi-pronged approach tackling this issue from different angles.
That's right.
Can you give some examples of what this could look like in practice?
Absolutely. We can push for financial institutions to offer more equitable loan programs,
Okay.
invest in underserved communities, and implement policies that prevent discrimination.
So things like ensuring access to fair mortgage rates, regardless of zip code, or providing financial coaching tailored to the unique challenges faced by specific communities.
Exactly. On the policy front, we can advocate for things like raising the minimum wage, expanding access to affordable housing, and investing in quality education for all.
Yeah.
These are all key components of creating a more level playing field.
And these policies, if implemented electively, would address the root causes of many financial disparities rather than just treating the symptoms.
Precisely. Now let's talk about financial literacy programs themselves.
Oh.
We need to move away from generic budgeting tips and create programs that address the specific needs and experiences of communities impacted by economic violence and systemic racism.
So instead of just teaching people how to balance a checkbook, we'd be talking about things like understanding predatory lending practices,
Right.
navigating the racial wealth gap, and building generational wealth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We can also incorporate concepts like financial therapy,
Okay.
which helps people address the emotional and psychological barriers that might be holding them back financially.
It's about recognizing that financial well-being is not just about numbers. It's also about our mindset, our beliefs, and our emotional relationship with money.
And that's where the power of community comes in.
Yeah.
We can support organizations like Operation HP, which provides financial literacy coaching and empowerment programs in underserved communities. They've developed a model that's incredibly effective in helping people build financial stability and achieve their goals.
I love their focus on empowerment. It's not just about giving people information, it's about giving them the tools and support to take control of their finances and build a better future for themselves and their families.
And they're not alone.
Yeah.
There are so many incredible organizations doing amazing work in this area. The Association of African American Financial Advisors, for example, provides financial planning and guidance specifically tailored to the needs of Black families and individuals.
Having access to advisors who understand your unique cultural background and experiences can make such a difference.
It really can.
It's about building trust and creating a space where people feel seen, heard, and understood.
Absolutely. And sometimes even simple things can have a big impact.
Like what?
The United Way, for instance, offers free financial literacy classes for kids, which is a fantastic way to instill healthy financial habits early on.
That's so important. Reaching kids at a young age and equipping them with financial knowledge can have a ripple effect that benefits them, their families, and their communities for generations to come.
It's about breaking cycles and empowering future generations to create a more just and equitable world.
I love that.
But it's not just about supporting these organizations. It's about advocating for change at every level, from our personal lives to our communities to the policies that shape our world.
I love that.
You're
So
right.
what does that look like in action?
Yeah.
How can our listeners as individuals contribute to this movement?
There are so many ways to get involved. You can start by educating yourself about the issues. Read books, listen to podcasts like this one, attend webinars, and engage in conversations with your friends and family. The more we talk about these issues, the more awareness we raise.
Right. Knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And once we have that knowledge, we can use it to advocate for change. We can contact our elected officials, support organizations working on the ground, and even challenge discriminatory practices in our own workplaces and communities. It's about using our voices and our collective power to create a more just and equitable world.
Exactly. And let's not forget the power of our wallets.
Oh, yeah.
We can choose to support businesses that align with our values, invest in companies that promote diversity and inclusion, and even donate to organizations working to dismantle systemic barriers. Every action, no matter how small, can make a difference.
I love that reminder. It can feel overwhelming to think about tackling such massive issues, but it's important to remember that collective action starts with individual choices.
That's right.
Okay, so we've talked about the historical context, the emotional toll of race-based trauma, the need to reimagine financial literacy, and some practical steps for creating change. But there's one piece of the puzzle I still want to explore further.
Okay.
You mentioned earlier that there's a difference between race-based trauma and PTSD.
Right.
Can we unpack that a bit more?
Of course, while both are deeply damaging and can have lasting effects, one key distinction is that PTSD often stems from a single traumatic event, whereas race-based trauma is typically a result of ongoing and repeated exposure to racism and discrimination.
So it's that constant barrage of microaggressions, systemic barriers, and experiences of exclusion that chip away at a person's well-being over time.
Exactly. It's like death by 1,000 cuts.
Wow.
And because that exposure is so pervasive, it can be difficult for people to even recognize that they're experiencing trauma.
Right.
It becomes so normalized that it feels like just a part of everyday life.
Which makes it even more insidious because if you don't recognize it as trauma, you might not seek the support or healing you need.
That's the danger. And that's why it's so important to validate these experiences and create spaces where people can talk about their trauma and access the resources they need to heal.
Absolutely. And it's important to remember that healing is possible. There are therapists and support groups that specialize in race-based trauma, and individuals can also develop coping mechanisms and build resilience.
Exactly. And financial literacy can be a powerful part of that healing process.
Okay.
By understanding the systemic factors that contribute to financial disparities, we can start to reclaim our power and create a more just and equitable world for everyone.
That's such a powerful message.
Mm-hmm.
So for our listeners who are interested in learning more about race-based trauma and how it intersects with financial literacy, where can they go for more information?
There are so many fantastic resources available. Organizations like Mental Health America and the American Psychological Association have helpful information on their websites, and there are many therapists and counselors who specialize in this area.
And for folks who are specifically interested in the connection between financial literacy and social justice, are there any resources you'd recommend?
Definitely. The Center for Financial Social Work is a great resource. Their website has articles, webinars, and even a certification program for professionals who want to deepen their understanding of this intersection.
And for those seeking more personalized support, don't hesitate to reach out to a financial therapist. They can help unpack your unique financial story, develop strategies for a healthier relationship with money, and address any underlying trauma that might be holding you back.
It's about taking a holistic approach to financial well-being. Our finances are inextricably linked to our mental, emotional, and social health, and we need to address all of those aspects to truly thrive.
It's about recognizing that true financial well-being goes beyond just dollars and cents. It's about creating a sense of safety, security, and agency in your life. And that sense of agency is crucial when it comes to addressing those larger systemic factors that contribute to financial disparities.
Right, absolutely. It's not just about individual empowerment. It's about collective action and advocacy.
Yeah.
We need to work together to create a financial system that is fair and equitable for everyone.
And that means holding institutions accountable, challenging discriminatory practices, and advocating for policies that promote economic justice. It's a big task, but it's absolutely necessary if we want to create a world where everyone has the opportunity to build a secure and prosperous future, regardless of their race or background.
That's a future worth fighting for.
It certainly is. And I think our conversation today has provided a great roadmap for how we can all contribute to that fight.
I agree. I hope our listeners will walk away feeling empowered and inspired to take action.
Me too. So as we wrap up this deep dive, is there one final thought you'd like to leave our listeners with? I think one thing that's really stood out to me is that while the issues we've discussed are deeply rooted and complex, there's also a tremendous amount of hope and potential for positive change.
Yeah, I completely agree. The more we understand about these connections between race, trauma, and financial well-being, the better equipped we are to really challenge the status quo and, create a more just and equitable world.
And that starts with each of us taking action in our own lives. Whether it's examining our own financial stories and biases,
Right.
supporting organizations that are doing great work, or advocating for policy changes, we can all contribute to this movement.
Absolutely. Remember, financial literacy is not just about personal empowerment. It's a powerful tool for social justice.
Yes.
And we can all play a role in leveraging that power for good.
We've covered a lot of ground today, from unpacking the historical legacy of economic violence
Yeah.
to exploring the impact of race-based trauma and reimagining what financial literacy can be.
Right.
I have to say this deep dive has been incredibly insightful, even for someone like me who thought I had a pretty good grasp on these issues.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. And remember, this is just the beginning of the conversation. There's so much more to learn and explore,
Right.
and so much work to be done.
Well said. We hope this episode has sparked some new ideas and inspired you to take action.
Yeah.
If you're interested in learning more, we encourage you to check out the resources we mentioned
Yes.
and continue to dive deep into these crucial issues. Until next time.
Absolutely.
Keep asking questions, keep challenging assumptions, and keep striving for a more equitable future for all.
For everyone.